Show.
This is a Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and today I'm here with actor, singer, performer, and songwriter Rick Springfield. How you doing today, Rick?
Great.
All right. So you having fun out here today at the fair?
Yeah, my family's out there riding and doing the bungee jump.
Tell me about your early days as a struggling musician in Australia.
I didn't struggle that hard in Australia. I was basically living at home and playing, going out and playing around Australia. Didn't start, I think, till I came over here, till I left home. It was Australia back then in like late 60s, early 70s. Was a pretty small scene. So you kind of, it was almost like family, same kids, everything was a Grateful Dead concert, same fans followed you around every gig, But it was, really coming over here was a big eye-opener, I think.
Well, how did you get your first record deal in the U.S.?
I had a single. I was in a band that had some hits in Australia, and then I got a single, my first single over there that was a hit in Australia, and then that got me a deal over here. Signed with Capitol, and they brought me over here, and I went to England to record the first album here.
And that was called Comic Book here?
That was Beginnings. Yeah, a song called Speak to the Sky, which was a top 10 single, but that was pretty much it off the album.
And that was wasn't that from a TV show?
No, I did a TV show later on, an animation show.
Okay. What was that called?
Mission Magic. It was supposed to be a morning TV show, kids show, and I was kind of lost musically, I think, at the time, so I just wrote a bunch of songs, and they used my voice and drew me. It was pretty bizarre. It was one of the more bizarre side trips of my career so far.
At what point did you decide to pursue an acting career?
About 1975, I was part of the tough times over here, actually. That I split from my managers that had brought me over, and one of them was trying to sue me, and I had no money, and I was real depressed, actually. And if this friend of mine said, "Why don't you come to an acting class?" So I just went along just for something to do, and it really saved my life at that point. I fell in with a community of actors and started to discover that I could actually have friends of my own over here. It was great. I mean, it really saved me.
So then what led to you getting your roles on Battlestar Galactica, The Hulk, and then General Hospital?
Just going up on I got an agent, then I went up on a couple of things, and I was a Universal contract player for a while. I was one of the last Universal contract players, where they pay you every week and put you in as many shows as they can.
That's
so
cool.
It was great start for me as an actor. And then I hadn't worked for a year, and I think I hadn't had a record deal for 4 years, I think, and I hadn't worked as an actor for almost a year, and suddenly I got a record deal and got signed to General Hospital all in one. And it was...
So actually, the General Hospital thing happened at the same time that you were working on Working Class Dog.
Yeah. I just finished Working Class Dog, actually, and got this call for General Hospital, and I was undecided. So, well, I don't know. I mean, I got this record coming out, and I really think it might do something, and everyone at General Hospital was saying, well, no, we don't think it will. You should sign with General Hospital.
Yeah.
And most of the albums I'd put out to that point had been on the charts for about 6 weeks and then disappeared. So I said, well, I'll back it up here and see, maybe have a little security in case the album doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So how many years were you on General Hospital?
I was only on for 18 months, but it was a high point. It was a summer when it was the big, everyone was talking about it. It was on Time magazine. All the colleges were scheduling classes around the show so that people wouldn't miss classes. And we just happened to be a real kind of golden age of soaps,
Were you surprised by the success, the immense success of Working Class Dog and the single Jesse's Girl?
I don't know if I was surprised. I mean, I always believed in my music, and I still do. And I was surprised at the ferocity of the attention, more than anything. Not that it was successful, but that there was just so much energy with the attention.
Yeah. Screaming fans.
Yeah, it was just from everywhere. I mean, from business people, suddenly they were all interested. Suddenly everyone was all interested who wouldn't give me the time of day before. It's the same old story. Everyone that's had an overnight success that took 15, 20 years, like I did.
And there's always the Johnny come latelys that want to Rick. I always knew you'd make it, and all that stuff.
I mean, a lot of the ones there's a lot of well-meaning people, and they're busy doing their life until something catches their ear, but it does hit all at once when it hits.
So where do you think that your energetic power pop sound comes from?
I mean, growing up with the Beatles has really been, that was kind of where Although I've really liked every kind of music. I don't really know where the actual influence comes from. I mean, we're influenced every day by song-wise, I'm influenced mainly by people that I know. You know, as far as what I write about, the music just comes, I don't know where it comes from.
Were you in cover bands when you were younger?
Yeah, I was always pretty much, I was in a show band that went to Vietnam. I was in Vietnam in 1969.
Wow.
And toured Vietnam with a show band, and that was really the closest I came to a cover band. I never played top 40 stuff, because from then I went into a band that was doing our own stuff, you know, and so I've always pretty much done that kind of thing. The show band was more like a 50s kind of thing. It was pretty bizarre. It was very bizarre.
Because usually, like, when you play music, it's like whether you know it or not, you know, when you learn songs.
Yeah,
like
the influences you're writing to dressing. All the early bands I was in were blues bands. I was like 16. I was in bands with like 25-year-old guys. I mean, I was always the youngest in a band.
Wow.
And so they opened me up to a lot of music that other than what was on the radio. I heard all the early blues stuff, and you know that they're all into, that the Stones kind of started with them. You know?
Yeah, you were I guess you were a big Beatles and Stones fan too.
Yeah, I was a big mainly Beatles fan, but also the old blues stuff. I was, you know, big B.B. King, Albert King, and Lightning Hopkins, and you know Robert Johnson. I was into them very early. You know, even that stuff. I mean, I play slide too. I have a new record coming out now that has a lot of slide guitar in it for the first. I've never played slide in any of my records, and you know that's come out lately. It's an influence from way back when I was 15, 16.
One of the things that really attracted me to your music and your songwriting was you write with a lot of grit, passion, and intensity. I mean, your lyrics, it's like when you sing a lyric, it sounds like, bam, it hits you hard. Are you singing from your heart? Are these autobiographical in any way?
No, everything I write is about someone or about something that's gone on inside me. I mean, from Jesse's Girl up till now, they've always been about actual people. I don't know. I used to read a lot as a kid. I left school early, but mainly I left so that I could read. I would just stay home and I'd read books, and that's all. That was really where my English education from. It was just reading. I read like 10 books a week. I mean, I was just insatiable reader, and I still am. And I think that's where I've always loved poetry. Always been a big fan of Dylan Thomas, and although I'm sure it doesn't show up in my lyrics, but my attention to my lyrics, it shows up in my attention to my lyrics, because I always pay very special attention to. I mean, I'll work a song for like 3 months to get a right word that's meaningful to me. You know, I mean, other people, if they may not hear the work in it, and others may, but I know that it's in there, and I know that came from just my love of words, you know, and love of poetry.
After the success of Living in Oz, then success hasn't spoiled me yet, then you do the mega movie Hard to Hold and the soundtrack. Now, what brought you to bring the two worlds together, the acting and the music?
It was really, I was kind of on a roll, a momentum ball, you know, where you kind of, it's hard to get off, and this thing was thrown at me, and I kind of went, yeah, I can do that, you know, and in retrospect, it probably wasn't the best choice to showcase me as an actor, because everybody thought I was just playing myself, which, you know, if anyone knows anything about acting, you don't, you know, that you can't do that, or they'd hire doctors to play doctors. Doctors can't play doctors, they hire actors to play doctors. And it's a whole, but it was, I think, it was interesting to do. I mean, it was a good thing to do for me then. I mean,
yeah, it seemed fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and musically there were some interesting things came out of it for me. But it was a little bit like that that cartoon show, because you had to write to kind of order, you know, scenes, and it was a discipline that I don't enjoy, that part of the songwriting.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's certain parts of this job that I don't enjoy that take discipline too, also. So towards the end of the Hard to Hold tour, and actually I saw you on that tour, and I mean, when you hit the stage, I saw you actually at Pacific Amphitheater, and I mean, there was not a seat free in that place. It was just completely sold out. You hit the stage, and all you hear are screaming girls.
We used to do the one entrance where I'd start up top, and this lift would come down. And when the light hit me and the scream would start, it would mess with my equilibrium. A couple of times almost fell. I mean, it was pretty intense, the level of the. But that's part of that was. There was a lot of incredible energy. This one says part of the energy that was suddenly turned on the whole scene. You know?
Yeah.
It was, and now our live shows still have a lot of that same kind of energy, because the people. my live shows were always the relationship, the energy, you know, back and forward from stage to audience, and that's a real important part for me.
So after the end of the Hard to Hold tour, you kind of have a spiritual awakening, which shows up in your next album, Tao.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did this come about? How did you come to this place in your life?
I think it started with the death of my dad, which really happened just before working class stuff, and I didn't have time to deal with it then. I went through a couple of years kind of just stuffing it down, and then at some point when I had some time off, it really came out, and it's been a continual thing in my life now. My dad's death, just where that has taken me and continues to take me. And there's the new album has a lot of spiritual-based stuff on it too, and a couple of songs actually mention my dad still. I mean, it's been like almost 20 years. But
yeah, Father's Chair is a great song also.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of people go through that eventually, and I've had people come up after the fact, like 10 years later, and said, my dad just died, and I finally get that song, you know, I understand it. Basically, I think spirituality for me comes from facing death, you know, and you do that through either you're naturally gifted and have a great spiritual sense, or people start dying around you and you say, wait a minute, I have to deal with this, you know.
How did marriage and becoming a father affect or influence your next album, Rock of Life?
It was the birth of my kids that Rock of Life was about. It was another big change. Birth and death have been the big movers for me.
Yeah.
And so that was, you know, it really, it opened up a lot of new stuff in me too, which it's really hard for me to look at a song I wrote and say, well, this was about this, but because it comes from other places, you know. A lot of the times, I mean, Tao I really wrote and then looked at it later on and said, oh, so that's what that was about. It was my spiritual awakening, you know. I mean, but then I didn't really realize that. And I've heard that from a lot of writers, because it does come from, hopefully, right, you try to write from a place other than, okay, what do they like, you know,
exactly.
Does this rhyme with this, is this the right chord? Yeah, I mean, that's all part of it, but it's, in the end, it's got to, hopefully it comes from somewhere deeper.
Yeah, Tao would love, yeah. That's a very calming song when you listen to that in the car.
Yeah, I hear that too.
What inspired the songs Tear It All Down and World Start Turning? Because those are really, they sound kind of angry almost.
More fear, I think, because it was the birth of my first son, and I started, you know, like I think most fathers do, go through, oh no, wait a minute, there's going to be life after I'm dead. What am I, you know, what are we leaving the kids? And it's basically from that what shape are we leaving the world in? And I have a great vested interest in that now, because I have two sons that are going to be there when I'm gone, and they're going to have to deal with that. And it's a big worry. I mean, it's, you know, personally it's a big worry. It's always been a worry like, oh yeah, we got to save the world. But once it becomes a real personal thing, that your children are actually going to be in that world, it hits home a lot harder. You know, so that basically those two songs came out of that. Fear more than anger.
Yeah. How did High Tide come about, the series?
I think it's a distraction from my music. That was a 3-year thing. It was a lot of fun. We went all over the world shooting this show, and it was great. But it really, I'd start to write some of the songs on this new album that I have coming out now. Some of them are written in between, you know, the seasons, and I'd start getting into a writing mode, and then they'd say, "Oh, we'll pick the show up again." So I'd have to go off and do that. I can't write and act at the same time. Do a project like that at the same time, because writing is like a 24-hour-a-day thing.
Yeah. And, it's exhausting.
Yeah, but it's something I really love. I mean, I'm the kind of writer that I jump up in the middle of the night and start writing, you know. So I need to be there 24 hours a day. I can't be going off and going, yeah, I'll do this acting project and come back and write it, because then I'm totally out of the writing process, you know.
Yeah.
It takes me like a month or two to get into just that I'm, okay, now I'm going to write.
Did you see the movie Boogie Nights?
No, I haven't seen that yet. I haven't been able to see any movies that I've been recording.
You know your songs in
Yeah,
Jesse's Girl, right? In one of the pivotal scenes in the movie. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's great when your songs, you know, I love that it certainly gives a song itself a bit of a new lease of life, and I like that someone, you know, thought enough of it to stick it in a movie, because music is very important to directors. They choose their music very, very carefully.
That's a pretty outrageous scene.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, you got to see it, Rick. You got to rent it. Don't let your kids see it, though. Okay.
No, that's what I hear too.
What do you consider your greatest achievement so far?
Oh wow, that's not really an achievement, but my kids. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't do anything other the raising of them. I think I'm doing an okay job for first-time dad.
That's cool. Are they interested in music?
Yeah, they both are. Actually, they're both here today. It's the first time they're going to see me play.
Really?
Yeah.
How old are they?
12 and 9.
Do you ever do they have instruments? or
Yeah,
anything?
they play guitar and keyboards.
Do you ever jam with them?
Actually, I hosted a benefit up in Tucson that some friends of ours used to do, friends of mine used to do, and they got up and played.
Cool.
They got up and played. We played a blues song, and they got up and played solos and everything. It was really cool.
That's awesome. So what's next for Rick Springfield?
I'm finishing mixing my first album in 10 years. We have 2 more songs to mix, which we're doing after this show. I'm going back in the studio to finish mixing that, and then my focus will be on getting that album out and letting people know that there's a new record out there. And
Do you have any distributors right now?
no, not yet. I wanted to finish it all before, so that I have something. You know, it's really hard for me with new songs. No one ever hears demos. No one ever hears anything until it's finished.
This song, American Girl. This is such a great song. I mean, no, it just totally like, that's what I love about your songs. You can see in your mind what you're singing about and what you're writing about. Just tell me quickly where this came from.
I think it came from my infatuation as a foreigner of American women, probably more than anything.
Really?
Yeah.
They're pretty special.
Well, it's growing up in Australia. You know, I mean, people don't realize Americans don't. I think some of them are starting to get it. But you know, I grew up in Australia, and you're in a foreign country. America's presented as this incredible, glamorous. You see it through the movies. You see
Yeah.
it through the eyes of directors choosing images.
Absolutely.
And images that aren't necessarily representative of America, but they sure are as far as you consider living in Melbourne, Australia, or wherever, England, or wherever these people are. I mean, I actually to a degree have gotten it from smaller, like town areas in America. I mean, we all buy into that that thing.
Definitely. MTV especially has sold us,
and
the whole
sold
image.
us ourselves back to us.
Exactly. Rick, it's been a pleasure interviewing you,
enjoyed
man.
it. Thank you.
The Blairing Out Show.